Hey everyone, Kelly Dean Allen here. Now then, a couple of weeks ago, I did a full album tutorial video for Aerosmith's classic album Toys in the Attic from 1975. And it was very well received overall and did quite well for me, picking up nearly 50,000 views in about 2 weeks. That's very good for my little channel, by the way. If you haven't seen it, I'll link it down below in the description box. That said, while amazing in its own right, Toys in the Attic is not my favorite early Aerosmith album. That designation would easily go to Rocks from 1976, their masterpiece album in my opinion. It simply has better songs and better guitar work and riffs than Toys in the Attic, at least in my humble opinion. So a companion video it is to my full album tutorial for Toys in the Attic, and this time we have a look at every track from Rocks, excepting the album closer Home Tonight, which is the lone ballad on the album and somewhat bereft of anything we could really call a guitar riff. Regardless, enough chit-chat, yeah? Let's close in here a little bit, learn how to play nearly every single track from Aerosmith's Rocks. Alright then, track 1, side 1, and back in the saddle. We are tuned down 1/2 step for this little mini tutorial. We're going to be tuned down a 1/2 step for pretty much all of these tutorials except for one. There's one track on this album which is in standard tuning, but I think every other track is tuned down a 1/2 step. Joe didn't play this one on a standard 6-string guitar. He played it on a baritone guitar, which is kind of a hybrid between a bass and a standard 6-string guitar. It's not quite a 6-string bass, it's somewhere in between. So for our purposes today, we're just going to drop our tone down to a 5 or 6 to kill some of the highs, see if we can get the tone a little bit closer. And now this track starts like this. And then we drop into the main riff, right? So what we're doing here, a little bar, the 2nd fret of the D and the G string with our index, and then we're going to drop our ring finger on the 3rd fret of the G, strike those 2 strings together, and then pull that 3rd fret off to 2 and let them ring, right? Then you're going to move it up 3 spots to a bar at the 5th, do the exact same thing. Move it up 3 more spots to a bar at the 8th, same thing, back it up to 5, and then repeat. And then we're going to repeat it one more time, but not completely. Up to 8. Now this time, instead of going back to 5, we're going to back it up to 7 and do 6 pull-offs. Right, like a group of 2 and then a group of 4. And then we drop into the main riff, right? So that's the opening. Back it up 1. Then we're into the main riff. And we're going to repeat that 4 times at the beginning of this track. So, pulling off 3rd fret of the low E off to open. And then you're going to hit 2 more open E strings, all palm muted. Back onto the 3, back off to open. Right, so that's the first half of the riff. Then you're going to hit 2 more open E's, and then you're going to go 2, 3. And then you're going to go open E again, 2, 3 again. And then you have to jump up here to the 5th fret of the A string. And then you're going to pick that a couple of times, off to 4, and then finish on the 5 of the low E. And that's the second half. Putting it all together. And you repeat that 4 times. and then we drop into the first verse. And we're going to repeat that twice. So open A, palm muted twice. Then you're going to go open A, 2, 3 of the A, and then catch the A power chord on the upstroke, so the G string and the D string. 2 more open A's. Then we're going to do these little double stops, like little reverse power chords here. 9 and 7, hit it twice. Back it up 2 spots to 7 and 5. And then these little double stops here, 5 and 4, hit that twice. Back it up 2 spots to 3 and 2. Right? And then we're going to repeat with a little variation. Now, up to that point, it's exactly the same, but we're not going to do this. This time we're going to go. So we're going to do the same little shape, right? 6 and 5. We're going to back it up 1 spot, and then back it up 2 spots to 3 and 2. So that's the verse. Right? Repeat. Back into the main riff. And that's all we're going to cover for this one, and that'll get you through the first verse, you know, the chorus and whatnot. It's pretty much the whole track, actually, minus the solo and whatnot. So anyway, let's move on. Track 2. Good then, track 2 and Last Child. We're still in drop tuning. We're tuned down 1/2 step. And this one starts like this. Drop into the main riff. So we're starting with this little A major shape here, 7 of the D string, 7 of the G, 6 of the B, open E. I'm just going to ride down the strings and ride back up again. And then you're going to repeat, but when you go back to the D string, you're going to hit it twice. And then we're going to switch into this little G chord here, G5 chord. We're going to play that twice. 5th fret of the D, 7th fret of the G, and 8th fret of the B with the open E string. And then we're going to slide into this little B minor chord, which is the 9th fret of the D, 7th fret of the G, and the 9th fret of the B with the open E. And then after you finish the little arpeggiated picking, you're just going to move that. You're going to grab all 3 notes together and then move it up 1, then move it up another. Kind of like that, right? Into that main riff there, and pretty simple stuff here. We're backing up to the 2nd fret of the A string here. You're going to pick that twice, and then you're going to go 4, 5, and then back to the 4, and then you're going to go 2, 4, 5, and then down to the 2 of the D. Right, and hang on that one just for a hair, and then you're going to repeat that 8 times. After you repeat it 8 times, we're into kind of like the pre-chorus. which you repeat 4 times. Basically doing this: 5 to 7, 4 to 5, 2 to 4. And then open D, 2 to 4. Right? And then repeat. But you're playing along with the open A string. And then back into the main riff 2 more times. And then we're into the chorus. Back into the main riff, right? So open D, little half step bend at the 11th fret of the G, release it off to 9, and then back it up to 7. Back on 9, back off to 7. Open A, and then a little half step bend release on the 6 of the G, off to the 4, up to the 7 of the D, and then back to the 4, onto the 5 of the D, back into the main riff. Right? And that is how you play Last Child, track 2. Let's move on, track 3. Alright, Rats in the Cellar, track 3, and one of the more kick-ass songs on this album with one of the more kick-ass riffs. Very loose, you know, this one, and loose and sleazy, and lots of double stop work and whatnot, and the track starts like this. And you repeat that 4 times. We're just grabbing power chords, 3-finger power chords here, A sharp, moving it into C. Right? You're going to hit that C twice and then choke it off. And between each little pause, right, Joe's doing a little bit of slide work, which we're not going to get into in this tutorial. This is kind of just like a little intro anyway. It's not really the main riff, but you repeat that 4 times. And then we drop into the main riff. I don't have enough gain on my amp for this one. I could use a little more gain to make it sound better, but I'm keeping it like this for clarity of notes, but it would certainly sound better with a little bit more gain. So what we're doing here, when we drop into this main riff for the very, very first time, and we're not going to repeat it, we're going to grab a double stop here on the 3rd fret of the A and the D string. You're going to hit that, then you're going to do a little mute, and then you're going to drop onto a double stop on the 5s. You're going to hit that twice on the upstroke. And then you're going to play that. 5th fret of the D string, down to the 3 of the G, and then back to the 5. Then you're going to drop down to a double stop on the 5s of the G and the B. We're going to pedal off of this 5, right? Back up to the 5 of the D, down to a double stop on the 3s of the G and the B, and then back to that 5 again, right? You're catching those double stops on the upstroke. Right? So that's kind of the riff, but that's the very first one. Now, every single time going forward, we're going to do this instead. So you're going to do a little hammer on from 3 to 5, down to the 3 of the D, little mute, and then you're going to catch the double stop, but mostly the D string, the 5th fret there, before doing the riff, right? That riff right there. Right, so that's the riff. So you repeat that 8 times, and then we drop into this. we're going to repeat that 4 times. F power chord here at the 8th fret position, slide it back to D, grab an A sharp power chord, 6th fret, slide it back to G, and then you drop into C. So while you're in C, you can do any number of things. You know, I've watched him live and he changes it up here. But for the most part on the studio version, he's just hanging in this C, right? Sometimes he does this. That little blues progression, right? Bouncing off the 7th fret of the D string here. So that's now the 4th time we've just repeated this. Now we're going to drop into D and let it ring. And then we're going to do a little mute, hit that D again, slide it back to C. Right? And then we're going to reverse it. And then back to C. And then we're going to go D, C, D, C. Off to A sharp, down to F. And we're going to, instead of going all the way up here to the F, we just drop into the F here on the 3 of the D, 5 of the G, right? So that's that section. A sharp, F, back into the main riff. And that is Rats in the Cellar. So let's move on. Track 4 and combination. All right then, track 4 and combination. We're still tuned down, 1/2 step for this one, and this one goes a little something like this. So it's kind of repeating the same little pattern on 2 different sets of strings, right? So it's starting on the open E string, then you're gonna hammer on 3 to 4 to 5, and then catch the 5 of the A string on the upstroke, and then off to an E power chord. And then we're into that. So we're kind of bouncing off the open E string. We're gonna grab a little double stop here, the 5th fret of the A and the D. Then you're going to back the D string off to 4, and then off to an E power chord, right? So that's the riff. And before you do those little double stops, you're going to chug on that open E string 2 or 3 times, right? Now you're going to do the exact same thing on the A and the D string. Exactly the same. Go back to the E and the A. Back to A. Back to E one more time. Now we're going to go back to A and the vocals come in, and then we're going to stay in A, repeating it. So we repeat it 4 times, and then we're into this, which is kind of like the pre-chorus. And we repeat that 4 times. So open E, then we're going to grab a D power chord, slide it into E, and then back to D. And then we're going to grab an A power chord up to B, back to A, and then back to G. And then off to E, right? Then you're going to go up to an E power chord here at the 7th fret position, and then back it off to D. And then before repeating it, you're going to grab that D power chord and go off to the G note there at the 3rd fret. Kind of like that, right? And then we're back into the main riff again in A. Next verse. So that's the riff, and that's pretty much all that we have to this one. So it's, you know, you're all in one motion, right? 3 to 4 to 5. And then catching that 5th fret of the A on the upstroke before going off to E. And then the same thing on the A. And there you have it. That is combination. Let's move on to track 5. Right, track 5 and Sick as a Dog. We are in standard tuning for the first time throughout these tutorials. This is the only track on the album that is in standard tuning, and it's actually still not in standard tuning. It's a little bit off standard, but it's not down a half step like every other track on this album. And the beginning of this one has 2 guitar parts going on, and this is one of them. And that leads into the main riff. So, B power chord, 3-finger power chord, ba-da-da, little down, up, down. And then we're going to move into an E power chord, 3-finger power chord, but we're going to start with our pinky, which would be sitting on the 9th fret of the G string. We're going to have the 8th fret of the G string with our middle finger, and then we're going to drop onto that power chord. So we want that chord right there. 7, 9, 8. And then you're going to drop into the power chord after striking that chord twice. Kind of like that, right? And then back to B, off to A, and then an E power chord, back to B, back up to the E, same little chord, back to B, and then off to A, and you kind of ride the A, and that leads into the main riff for the first verse. So that's one of the guitars. And then we drop into the main riff. But before we get to that, I need to show you what the other guitar is doing at the very beginning of this track. Doing that. And repeating it 4 times. So the 4th fret of the G, 2nd fret of the B, open E. You're going to ride down the strings from the G string twice. And you're going to do it one more time, but you're going to skip the B string the 3rd time. Right? You're just going right from the G string down to the E. Then you're going to move into the 8th fret of the G with open B, open E. Ride down those once. Then you're going to move up to 9. Ride down them twice, the 2nd time skipping the B string. Right, kind of like that. Kind of sounds a little odd being slowed down, but when you put it together, right, and that's it. And you're going to repeat that 4 times. And then we drop into the main riff. So, E power chord off, bouncing off the open E string. Right, you're going to hit that twice, then you're going to back it up to E flat, back it up to D flat, and then back to B. When you go back to the D flat here at the 4th fret position, you're going to slide it back to the E flat. And then you're going to go off to B, right? And then you're going to hang in this B, strum it a little bit, and then go off to an A power chord. A, repeat. A. So we've just repeated that 4 times, and now we're into the chorus. So we're not going to go off to A this time. We're going to hang in that B and jump right into the chorus. So that's the chorus. I'm going to be repeating that twice. So B power chord off to an A power chord. Then you're going to grab the 3rd fret of the low E right back into the A power chord. And then we're into that. So we're going to jump up here to a 3-finger E power chord, back it up to E flat, and then back to B. So you're going to hit that E power chord twice, back it up 1 fret, and then move it back to B. And then you repeat. So when you repeat it the second time, we're going to hang in this E. We're not going to back it up, right? That's the first one. This one, we hang in E. Repeat. The 3rd time, you're going to ride right down those chords we were playing. E to E flat to D flat to B. And then you finish in B. Go back into that, and then we drop into the 2nd verse. So that's the chorus. So that time you bounce back to that E flat before going to B. The next time we stay in E. And then the 3rd time we go back to the E flat, right? Before going to B, repeat. And this time we ride right down the chords. Into the 2nd verse. Right? And that is it for Sick as a Dog. Let's move on to Nobody's Fault, track 6. Right then, track 6 and Nobody's Fault. Probably my favorite song on this album. Well, there's no probably about it. It is my favorite song on this album. It's probably my favorite song overall from Aerosmith's vast catalog of music, probably because it's so damned heavy. Starts like this. We're kind of repeating the same thing twice here, but with little variations. So we're in the F sharp here, holding an F sharp power chord, but really we're just chugging along on the low E string at the 2nd fret here with this kind of pattern to begin. It's like 11 pick strikes, alternate picking. And then we're going to go off to open E, drop back into the F sharp, and then you're going to grab the octave of that note down here on the 4th fret of the D string, which you're holding with your pinky. And then you're going to go off to E. And when you do go off to E, you're going to start chugging that open E string, palm muted, the first time in a group of 5 and a group of 4, kind of like this. Ba-da-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da. Right? Then you're going to go down to an A power chord, hit it twice, drop back into the F sharp, and start the whole thing again. So that's the first pass through of this riff. Right, now the second pass through starts the same way, chugging that same pattern on the F sharp note, Now this time, instead of going off and on and grabbing the octave, we're going to go off and on, and we're just going to grab that note on the second fret of the low E twice before going off to E. Kind of like that, right? And now we're going to start chugging on the open E, but this time we're not going to do a group of 5 and a group of 4 with a little pause in the middle. We're just going to chug straight on through to those double A power chords. Right, before dropping back into F sharp. So that is the intro before the first verse starts. Let's recap. Right, so that's the intro. Now we're into the first verse. We're going to be repeating this 4 times. With a little variation, which I'm going to get to. So we're in the F sharp. We're going to start with our index off, drop into the F sharp, hit it twice, hit that second fret twice, grab the octave, and then start chugging the F sharp note there at the second fret. Repeat. And then you're going to go A, B, and then drop back into the riff. So you repeat this 4 times. And then we're into this section. Right? But I need to back up because as we're coming out of the intro, right, this section here, at this point, when we drop into the F sharp for the first verse, we're not going to do the octave just the first time. We're just going to head into that F sharp and start chugging, right? Now we do the octave. And then we start it with the octave, right? You see what I mean there? So that's the first verse coming out of the A power chords. Straight into chugging. Now the octave. A, B, and then you start it with the octave every other time. So now we're into this little break in the middle of the first verse with this. Back into the first verse, right? So open A, 1, 2, and then you're going to roll down to a double stop on the upstroke of the D and the G string at the second fret. Then you're going to go open A, 1, 2, 3. Hit it twice, and then you repeat. But when you repeat it, when you hit that C note there at the third fret the second time, you're only going to hit it once, and then you're going to have a little pause. And you're going to grab a double stop here on the 5th fret of the D and the G and slide out of it. So kind of like this. Double hit. Single hit. Grab that double stop and slide out back into the riff again. Now this time, we're going to stop on that note, a little pause, and we're going to kickstart back into the verse riff again with this. Right, 3, 2, open of the A, and then drop back into that F sharp for 2 more repeats of the verse riff. Right? And then we're into the chorus. So we're going to drop down to D, strike it twice. Then you're going to go off to open A, kind of palm muted, drop onto the second fret. And then back into D for 2 more pick strikes, right? And then back to open A, drop back onto that B note there at the second fret again, right? Now we're going to drop into B minor and play basically the exact same pattern. and then we're into this. Bum, 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 bum. Before dropping back into the F sharp again. So G, bump, 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 4 pick strikes, bump, 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 back it up to F sharp, back it up to F, bump, 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 back it off to E. When you go off to E, you're going to double time it, right? Bump, 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 bump. And then you're going to move it up to D, a D major chord here, bar chord here at the 5th fret position. Very choppy, very staccato, 4 times. Bump, 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 bump. Back it up to D flat, double time it. And then back into the main riff again, right? So that's the chorus. For the second verse. And that, my friends, is how you play Nobody's Fault. Let's move on to track 7. Right then, track 7, and Get the Lead Out. Now, every Aerosmith album seems to have that one fun boogie-woogie type track on it, and on Rocks, it's this one. And this is such a cool and fun riff to play. It goes a little something like this. So what we're doing here is we're grabbing around the 17th fret of the A string. We're going to slide out of that. And we're going to go 2, 3, 4, 5 of the A string. Then you're going to grab this little D double stop here, open D and the 2nd fret of the G. And then you're going to hit that, and then you're going to hammer on without picking the 3rd fret to the 4th fret. And then right back to the double stop again. Right? And then you're going to repeat the 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. But every time after the first time, we're going to bounce off the open A. Starting on the open A, right? So the first time it's just a straight shot. 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, every time afterwards, we're going to bounce off the open A. Repeat. And then after the 3rd repeat, you're going to grab that little D double stop and choke it off. And then we're into this little lick. So 3 to 2 to open of the A, then grab that F note there at the 1st fret. And then the next one is 3 to 2 to open of the D, and then grab the 3rd fret, that G note of the low E. And then the last one is 5, 4, 2 of the D, and then drop into an A power chord. Right? And then we're into this. Which we're going to repeat a couple of times. Double stop, open strings, D and G on the upstroke twice, and then drop back into the A power chord, right? Or just the double stop really on the D and the G string. Then you're going to grab a quick open A, slide into 4, hit the 4 twice, off to 2, and finish on the 3. And then after you repeat that 4 times, then you're just going to drop onto this double stop on the 4th fret, and then kind of just slide it up the neck, and then drop back into the main riff again. Six times, I believe. And then back into this. And then one more slide back into the 2nd verse. And that's pretty much it for that one. So let's move on to the final track that we're going to be doing from this album, because the last track is actually a ballad and it doesn't really have any riff to it. And so let's move on to track 8. Right then, track 8, and Lick and a Promise. Now this is going to be the last tutorial in this video, as the closing track, Home Tonight, is the ballad from the album. Doesn't really have anything that we could call a guitar riff in it, so we're just going to gloss over that one. But this one has a great guitar riff, and goes something like this. So that's the opening riff to this one. Just little power chords, right? 2-finger power chords. We're playing the same kind of pattern 3 times in 3 different positions. Starting in D flat here, the 4th fret position power chord, sliding it into D. Starting with an open E, actually. Right, very briefly. And then you're going to move up to an A flat power chord, slide it into A. Right, kind of like that. Now we're going to move it up 3 spots, E into F. Then we're going to jump up here to B into C, right? Then we're going to move it up 2 more spots. Now we're sliding in F sharp into G, and then D flat into D again. So we started at D flat into D, we end at D flat into D. Right? All power chords. Now, when we do slide into this D, now we're going to grab an A flat power chord here, 11 and 13, right? And we're going to chromatically ride that right up to C at the 15th fret, right? And then slide out of it. Kind of like that. And then we drop into the main riff. So we're starting in C, 3-finger C power chord here with our index off, and we're kind of bouncing our index on and off of this 3rd fret along with the vocals, kind of like this. Bum 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 bum. Right? Bum 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 bum. But you're doing it along with the whole power chord. Bum 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 bum. And then we're into that, which is a little bit tricky to play this, but we're moving off into B flat, and again we're going to start with our index off. So that's the little pattern we're playing, but we are still hitting the full power chord, right? So here's the pattern. So starting on the open A, then we're going to drop onto the 1. Back off to the open A, and then up to the 3rd fret of the low E. Open, 1, open again. Back up to the 3rd fret of the low E. Open A, 1, open, back onto the 3rd of the low E, right? Yet every time we go to that note, on the 1st fret of the low E, the B flat note, we're hitting the power chord. Right? You follow that? So all the other notes, you know, that note, the 3rd fret of the low E, the open A, they're all just single notes. But every time you drop onto that 1, you're hitting the full B power chord. Right? So that's the verse, and we're going to repeat that 4 times. And after you repeat it 4 times, we're heading in kind of into the pre-chorus, right? So we're going to grab little 2-finger power chords here. G, 10, 12, right? And we're going to slide that into A 5 times. With like a little mute before each slide, right? And then you're going to drop off to an E power chord or an E major chord. Just kind of strum that, right? Kind of like that, right? And then you repeat the slides. Back to E. And now the chorus. We're going to drop off to D. Na, na. Back to E. Na, na. And when he goes to E, he's doing a little play here with his pinky on the 10th fret, right? Na, na, na. You know. Da, ba, da. Na, na, na. And then we're going to go back into more slides, but they're a little bit different this time. So we're really just doing a 3 slides, right? We're going to slide from the G into A, and we're going to hit the A 2 or 3 times. Kind of like that, and you repeat it 3 times. Na, 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 na. Repeat. Na, na, na. Now, as a lead in to the second verse, we're going to take this A, hit it 1 more time, and then chromatically, like we did at the very beginning, go right up to C. Bum, 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 bum. So you're going from 12, 13, 14, 15, right? Bum, bum, bum. And slide out of it into the second verse. Right? I hope that was clear. Let me take it right from the beginning. Nice and slow up to that point, and then we'll be done. More slides. E. Off to D. Na, na. Back to E. Na, na. Back to D. Na, na. E. Na, na. Slides. Chromatics. And that drops into the second verse. And that, my friends, is how you play Lick and a Promise, and that is how you play the entirety, except for the final cut home tonight, of Aerosmith's masterpiece album, in my opinion, Rocks. Certainly hope you enjoyed the video and found it helpful. If you did, please hit that like button, drop me a subscribe if you haven't done that already, as that would be awfully kind and helpful to my channel. Hit that notification bell wherever it is so you know when I upload something new, and you guys take care of yourselves. Hope you're well out there in your little guitar corner of the world, wherever that may find you, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.